Hi, and welcome to Straight Talk About God video. I'm Jack, and the next segment in the Lost Tribes series is all about Joseph. Last time we discovered that there were two ruling descendancies over the house of Israel because of Judah's twins. And Nebuchadnezzar, he thought that he cut off the whole line, the ruling line. But all he did was kill 7 sons of Zedekiah. He didn't kill the daughters. And it's possible that he didn't even know about the Zara line that could take up the rule. You know, if somebody happened to come back and said, they could be the king. But he thought he cut it all off. Now, what we have to do, though, is we have to go back to Egypt to pick up the time frame with Joseph and so forth. And again, it's mainly about Joseph and the family moving to Egypt, and that was prophesied, of course, by Abraham. Right? Abraham gave the prophecy, God gave Abraham the prophecy of 400 years, he said, that your people will go to a land, that there will be strangers in the land, and they will be serving those people, and then they'll come out richer than when they went in. Richer. Well, Jacob was already the, quote, king of Canaan anyway. He wasn't some back of the desert shepherd with 30 or 40 sheep, okay? So I'm going to be skipping along. We're not going to do a lot of reading, but as we go, I'll try to remember, and I've got little notes here that remind me that Joseph is a type of Christ. And the parallels of Joseph's life and going to Egypt and the brothers and all that is almost exactly the same as the things that happened to Jesus. Okay, we'll start with chapter 37. Chapter 37, and verse 2 says, "These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren." He's a shepherd. Jesus is the shepherd. "And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah." I think that's important. It doesn't mention the sons of Leah or Benjamin. Undoubtedly, Benjamin's still back home. But the sons of Leah aren't mentioned there. So I assume that they weren't there. His father's wives, actually they were the concubines. Legally, they were treated as wives, but they were still the concubines. He didn't actually marry them. Right? He married Leah and Rachel. But Joseph, it says, Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Whatever that was, they did something, right? They did something that Joseph didn't think was the right thing to do, and he was tattletale. You know, he was a tattletale. So he goes and he tells Dad. You know, bring their evil report. Let me see if we have to go on to the next here. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his brethren. Didn't they know that? Didn't they see that? Because he was the son of his old age. Okay, he was, up 90 some when Joseph was born. And he made him a coat of many colors. Okay, now that's about where it stops. In other words, Jacob treated him like he doted on him, okay? He was a spoiled brat is what he was, see? And that's why he went and told tattletale to Dad. Those guys were doing, whatever. And they didn't like him, right? Well, there's several places where controversy and conflict can arise within the 12 brothers, within the family. This is one of them, okay? because Joseph was so favored by Jacob, they all didn't like him. Well, you know, I mean, when they didn't want to like him, they didn't like him, okay? They didn't hate him all the time, but another thing is Reuben. Reuben is the firstborn. Well, there's a chance for somebody to say, well, that's not fair. He got all the good stuff, and I, you know, because he's the firstborn. So there's another place of conflict. Also, I see an open door for conflict between the real wives' sons. Leah had 6, Rachel had 2, and they were the official wives. The 2 concubines, Zilpah and Bilhah, they had 4 sons. And I can easily see how in times of stress, those 4 sons would be with enmity against the real wives' sons. You got a bunch of things going on here, not to talk about the birthright that we already mentioned in a couple of other places, because Reuben didn't get the birthright, firstborn. Simeon and Levi didn't get the birthright, second and third. Birthright went to, not the whole birthright went to Judah. But he didn't get hardly anything. All he got was a chance to rule the family, the right to rule the family, and to be this depository of God's law. That's all he got. Joseph got everything else, the whole birthright, except those 2 little things. Okay? Well, now, aren't all the other 11 brothers, well, maybe not Benjamin, but the other 10, aren't they going to be, well, he got everything. Joseph was the nobility, you know? So there's enmity there. There's enmity between Judah and Reuben, because Reuben got aced out of the birthright and a chance to rule the family and all of that. See, there's several places where people could be fighting in the family, you know? And brothers, what do? They fight, right? Anyway, that's the background of the family, and Joseph is told he's been a tattletale. Went to Jacob, said the guys are doing this bad stuff, and then and they didn't like him for that. But then he had his first dream. Let's see if we want to read that to you here. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told his brethren, and they hated him yet more. What was the dream? He said, behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose. His sheaf stood up, and all your sheaves bowed down, made obeisance to my sheep. Oh, yeah? Oh, you think you're going to rule us? Is that what you think there? Huh. See? And that added fuel to the fire, you know. But that's only the first dream. The second dream, let's see, verse 9, chapter 37, and he dreamed yet another dream and told his brethren, and he said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars, he had 11 brothers, 11 stars made obeisance to me. Well, in other words, he was the ruler. Wasn't Jesus the ruler? Isn't he going to be the ruler of the earth in the millennium, God's kingdom? Another parallel. A lot more to come. And he told his father. And he said, you shouldn't do that stuff. But it also says that his father observed the saying. I mean, when God has talked to you personally and given you visions and prophecies and things, and passed down from granddad and your dad, you're pretty much in tune with God, okay? And when Joseph has these 2 dreams, which say practically the same thing, Jacob has taken note of it, okay? Okay. And his brothers envied him, but his father observed the saying. So the kids went out, and they went over to Shechem to pasture the flocks, flocks, lots and lots of sheep. Okay? And Jacob says, Joseph, go and see how your brothers are doing and how the flocks are, and bring me back word. Okay, I'll go. He makes out, and he heads for Shechem, but they're not there. Now, it doesn't say where he looked around. It just says he's wandering around in the field all alone, and this man shows up and knows stuff that he shouldn't be able to know. Okay? There's a really good movie called Joseph, and it tells the life of Joseph. And Ben Kingsley plays Potiphar. That'd be your reference point. You can look that up. It's a really good movie, you know, and it's really, really accurate. And where was I going with that? He goes out to see his brothers, and this man, he's wandering around. Well, let me see if I can find that verse. He said, go and see about the flock. He says, so he sent him out to the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. He didn't know where he was going. He couldn't find him. He's wandering around, and all of a sudden, this man shows up. Well, in the movie, it's implied it's an angel. It's an angel. And I think it was, because he says, the man says, what seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. Well, how does he know that? There's nobody around. He's not next to the town. And this guy all of a sudden shows up and says, what are you doing? He said, they are departed hence, for I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brothers. So he goes to the brothers, and when they see him coming, they say, here comes the dreamer, you know. Hey, you know, let's kill him. Let's kill him and take his inheritance, you know. We'll show that dreamer a thing or two, because they still has many colors, the coat of many colors that Jacob made up for him. But Reuben, he says, no, God, don't kill him. You have the blood on our hands. He's our brother and all that. They said, well, okay, you're right. We'll just throw him in this pit. It was an old cistern, you know, carved out of the rock for water storage. So we'll just put him in the pit, you know, and we'll see what happens to him. So they throw him in the pit, and they no sooner get him in the pit, he says, and they come therefore, and Reuben heard it. It came to pass when Joseph was come to his brethren, they took him, they cast him into the pit, and the pit was empty, for there was no water in it, and they sat down to eat bread. This is verse 25 of 37. Sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites, Midianites it says in a different verse, came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. Okay, hold your place there, and let's go back and see that Jacob is the type of God, and he sends Joseph to the brethren, the, quote, sinful brethren. That's another parallel. Another one is that when they see him coming, they say, well, let's kill him. You know, we'll kill him. Well, now they take the part of the Pharisees, and they're going to crucify Christ. Another parallel. And what do? Okay? And it came to pass when Joseph was come, his brethren, they stripped Joseph of his coat of many colors was on him, and they took him and threw him in the pit. They stripped him of his clothes. Isn't that what they did with Jesus before they crucified him? Another parallel. But what were the Ishmaelites carrying? They might have been carrying a whole lot of stuff, but we only find specifically mentioned spices like and balm and myrrh. Well, didn't the three wise men bring him frankincense and myrrh for his burial spices? Another parallel to Christ. Okay, where are we? He's in the pit, and they say, oh, well, and Judah said, what profit us if we slay our brother, let conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for our brother had dealt with him. And then they're passed by the Midianites merchantmen, and they drew up and lifted Joseph up out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. Not 30 pieces of silver like Judah, but pieces of silver. He was sold. It's great stuff, isn't it? And Reuben returned unto the pit. I don't know where he went, but he went off someplace after he told them, don't kill him. And he rent his clothes. Joseph was gone. Okay? Who is held responsible after Jacob of the family? Firstborn. Reuben is firstborn. See? And he said, the child is not. Now, whither shall I go? What's going to happen to me when I get home and tell Dad, you know? So Joseph goes to Egypt. He's a slave, sold in their slavery. And Potiphar, the head of the captain of the guard, high mucky muck in Pharaoh's court, he buys him, right? Takes him home, and boy, right away, because Joseph is on track with God, right away things start going good for not only Joseph, but Potiphar. Potiphar sees that. He's a smart guy. He sees that. And he says, whoa, you know, he lets him do everything. He turns the whole house over to Joseph. It says in one place, let's see, and if I can find that real close, he took Joseph, Potiphar, where's it, Egypt. I think we're over here in chapter 39. Yeah, Potiphar, officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, brought him down hither, and the Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered. Joseph found grace in his sight and was overseer over his whole house that he had put in his hand. And it came to pass that time that he made him overseer over the house. And a goodly person, and the blessing of the Lord was in the house. Oh, I can't find it off right. He had committed to his hand. There was none greater. Behold, my master wotteth not, doesn't even know, what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. Potiphar didn't even hardly know what anything was. What was for dinner? That was what he knew. He gave everything to Joseph. Well, Joseph was well favored, handsome young kid, doing a lot of good stuff. You know, business as usual. And boy, and Potiphar's wife. The Egyptians were kind of loose, huh? Potiphar's wife says, "Ooh, nice kid." He says, "Hey, come and lie with me." Lie with me? I can't do that. I can't do that. Your husband gave me lord over the whole house and doesn't hardly know what's going on except for what I do, and you expect me to do that and betray? I won't do that. And he leaves. So one day, Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there were none of the men of the house within. They were all out in the garden or something, okay? So he was alone in the house with the wife. Well, she says, "Oh, come and lie with me." She grabs his coat. And he says, "No," and he runs away. She's got his coat. Well, she's not going to let him get away with that. Huh? She yells and screams at, rape, rape. Eh? And the men come in and says, he tried to make me lie with him, and look, I've got his coat, and he ran away. Potiphar comes home, is told all this story, and he's on the horns of a dilemma. He knows what Joseph is about. He knows that he's been blessed because Joseph is there, and he's upright and loyal and all of that. And he knows that something's fishy going on here, you know. But he's got to do something. And in the movie, it's a really, just a really touching, tender scene, because Potiphar and Joseph have a scene together. He tells all the servants to go away, and he says, well, now, what really happened here? And, you know, and they said, well, are you saying that my wife is lying? Joseph, no, I wouldn't dare say that she was lying. And they go back and forth, and Potiphar, he's really torn, you know. So finally, he doesn't do what his wife says. His wife says, kill that guy, you know. And if it hadn't been Joseph, it had been somebody else, he probably would have. But because it was Joseph, and because he knew, Potiphar knew what he was like, he just put him in prison. Just, boom, put him in prison. Well, when you're on God's side and you're doing it the way you know he wants it done, God is on your side, and you prosper. You be okay wherever you are. Like Paul says, in whatever circumstances I find myself, I've learned to be content. I got God. What do I care about jail, beating, shipwreck, stoning? Well, Joseph had that attitude too. And he did the best he could with anything that came in front of him. So he got into the jail, and the captain of the guard saw what good guy he was, put him in charge of everything. Again, okay? So he's running the whole jail, and two of Pharaoh's servants get in trouble, and Pharaoh puts them in prison too. Well, now he's relating to them, you know, on a daily basis. Again, he spent 12 years in jail. 12 years. And he was 17 at the beginning, and so he gets to be about 18, see? And 12 years makes him 30. That'll come up later on. 30 years old, puts him in jail. Well, that's what they did to Jesus. They put him in jail, didn't they? You know, it was an open jail, but he was in jail. The baker and the cupbearer, the butler of Pharaoh, are in there, and he's relating to them, and one day he comes in. Let me see if I can find that here real quick. The dreams, Pharaoh's, no, choosing a wife, Potiphar, where the, chapter 40, and they said to him, so how come you look so sad? We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. I mean, they're in jail, right? No soothsayers there. And Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me the dreams. They tell him the dreams. He interprets, and he interprets correctly, because what he says is going to happen, happens. First guy says, well, I beheld a vine before me, and in the vine were 3 branches. 3 branches. And it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes, and Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup to Pharaoh's hand. Well, nothing bad going on there. And Joseph says, oh, that's easy. The vines, there are 3 vines, that means 3 days. 3 days. They were put in jail from that time was 3 days. Not from the time they were put in jail. 3 days. 3 days in the tomb is what I'm getting at here. Okay, 3 days in the tomb with Jesus. Okay? Joseph says, those 3 vines are 3 days. And that means in 3 days, Pharaoh will release you. You'll go back and take up your old job, giving him his cup of wine. Whoa, that was pretty good. So the second guy says, hey, I dreamed a dream too. Tell me what that is. His dream. He says, the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, and he said to Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there were all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh. And the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. End of dream. Well, that's not too bad. That's a kind of a negative thing. The birds are eating up his food for the Pharaoh. And Joseph says, the 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head from off your body and the birds, and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh. And it happened. It happened. But he says to the butler, he says, but when you get back into Pharaoh's service, remember me, okay? Put in a good word for me here. I mean, I did you a favor, and you're going to be, and he doesn't. He forgets all about it. And it's 12 years from the time Joseph starts until he gets out of prison. Sometime during that 12 years, late in the 12 years, Pharaoh has a dream. Actually has 2 dreams, okay? He got 2 dreams. And he tells his dream to all his soothsayers and prophets and all that, and I don't know. Nobody can figure it out. And then the butler, with all this commotion about the dreams, he says, I've been bad. There's a guy in prison when you put the baker and me in prison, and we had dreams, and he interpreted the dreams and it came true. I think maybe you ask him up. Maybe he'll know what the dreams are. Okay? Pharaoh says, good idea. Calls for Joseph. Joseph shows up, and Pharaoh says unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and that none can interpret. I heard say that thou canst understand a dream and interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh the answer of peace, an answer of peace, a satisfying answer. Okay? Pharaoh said, well, in my dream, behold, I stood by the river bank, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, K-I-N-E, cows, cattle, fat-fleshed, well-formed, well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor, very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I had never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and ill-favored kine did eat up the first well-favored kine, fat kine. But when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, because they still looked bad. That was the end of the dream. And then he says, and I saw in my dream, behold, 7 ears. A new dream. 7 ears, number 7, came up on one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians and the soothsayers, and they couldn't declare it to me. Well, Joseph says, that's easy. God's just showing you what's going to happen. what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. Same dream, different elements. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears, blasted with the east wind, shall be 7 years of famine. 7 good years, 7 famine years. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showed unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. Bad stuff. And it's not just Egypt. It's way across over the Nile, way into Canaan, promised land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. At the mouth of 2 or 3, a thing is established. So Pharaoh has 2 dreams that mean the same thing, which confirm the fact that God's going to cause a famine and plenty. Now therefore, Joseph goes on, let Pharaoh look out a man, discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let the Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up a fifth part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And then let them gather all the food into those good years, and come and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for a store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, and the land perish not through the famine. That's what the dreams mean, and this is what you could do, you know. And Pharaoh says, wow, that's really good. I'll tell you what, you take over the job. You can be the head. Well, it turns out, that we'll get into a little bit later, that Joseph ran the whole country. The whole country. He was, see, there's a place in history, if you study Egyptian history, there's a place in history somewhere like around 1850 BC, around in there, give or take 150 years, where the Egyptian rule went from a pharaoh to a vizier, a head man, prime minister, whatever you want to call it. It was a vizier government. The pharaoh was up on the Giza Plateau on the deck sunning himself by the pool, and Joseph was running the whole thing, okay? Okay, but then, how old is Joseph when he becomes the ruler? 30. The priest, according to God's law, cannot start his priestly duties until he's 30. Christ, another parallel, Christ did not start his ministry, his baptism, until he was 30. Okay. And those 3 days in the tomb, okay. If you 30 Pharaoh's dreams, okay. The famine is going on. Those 7 years passed. They collected 1/5 of all the produce, and put it in all the granaries all around the country. 2 years go by, and now it's bad enough over in Canaan that Jacob says, go over to Egypt, get some food. They do. The brothers go, except Benjamin. He keeps Benjamin home. See? The brothers go, and everybody who's coming for food has to pass through Joseph. Okay? Joseph. Well, Joseph now, he's the big high mucky muck, and he's got all the kingly robes and all that stuff, and everybody's bowing and scraping to him, and the brothers show up and they don't even recognize him. It's 12 years since they saw him. He's 30 now. He's not 17 anymore. They don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. And he says, so, what are you here for? Oh, we just come for food. No, you're spies. Well, we're not spies. Oh, we're not spies. Prove it. Well, see, we came, our father, the family and all, and he said, you have any more family? Well, we have another brother that's back with Dad. We have one brother that's gone now. He's not with us anymore. He's dead. Okay. So he gives him the food, but he tells his main servant, he says, put the money in the bags. Put each guy's money into his own bag, and don't tell him. And they start back, and they stop on the way, and one of the brothers opens a bag to get some corn out to feed his animal. He finds the money. He says, oh, let me see if I can find it. Wait, 42, Pharaoh, see, I set thee over the land of Egypt. Wait a minute, 7, here's 7, this is 42, verse 28. Well, 27. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provender in the inn, he espied his money. For behold, it was in the sack's mouth. And he said unto his brethren, my money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them. How could that happen? Their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, what has this that God hath done to us? Right away they go to God. How did God allow this to happen to us? See? Well, what they were doing is what we should be doing in our lives, okay? Because him finding his money in the sack was what I call something that fell out of the sky. It just, out of the blue, this thing happened. It completely interrupted the flow of whatever was going on. I mean, they were just on their way home and they stopped at the inn and all of a sudden there's the money. Boom. When something falls out of the sky to a believer, you better pay attention. You better pay strict attention, because either God is allowing the devil to do that so that you'll discern the devil and reject whatever is happening, or more than likely it's something from God and he's telling you something and you better follow it up. See, what we do is say, oh, what a lucky break. Oh, I found a parking place right in front of the place. Oh, what a lucky break. That's not a lucky break, that's God. Okay? They knew right away something was going on, and they went to God for the answer. Right. Well, they get home and they tell Dad, and Dad says, oh, why did you do this to me? Well, before they left, Joseph also said, well, just to make sure that you're telling the truth, you come back here and bring your brother. I want to see that brother. Otherwise, So we can't do that. Our father won't, he won't. And one of the brothers says, wait, I'll take his place. I'll be a hostage. You guys go ahead. I'll stay here as a hostage, and if they don't bring him back, you can kill me. They go home, less one of the brothers, and Jacob says, Joseph is gone, Now you want to take Benjamin and put him in danger too? No, I'm not going to let you do that. I'd rather die of famine. Well, the controversy goes back and forth for a while, I don't know how long, and finally Jacob gives in because there's no food. Okay. So they go back, they bring Benjamin. Joseph, they still don't know it's him. Joseph takes him to dinner. And he sets him down in the order of their birth, which they say, that's strange. He sends him back away. Okay, he sends him back away. No, that was afterwards. He sends him away with their. I got to back up. They give him the money back, plus the money for the new food. So he says, okay. He takes one of his golden cups and he has his servant put it in Benjamin's sack. Same thing with the money, right? They go on the way. They just barely get out of the city, and Joseph sends his servant with some armed guards and stuff, sends him and stops him. He says, you guys are thieves. I knew you were bad guys. You were thieves. You stole from Pharaoh. We did not. Did you? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. No. If you find anything that belongs to Pharaoh in some one of these sacks, you can kill that. They go right to Benjamin's sack and find this golden cup. Oh! So they go back, and then they go to dinner. He sets them around in the right order, and see, he doesn't let on yet. And they're talking about in Hebrew. They're talking in Hebrew, and he understands. See, finally, he says, "I'm your brother," because he was gonna do something bad, and they said, "No, don't do that. We'll take it." See, he wanted to see that their heart was in the right place, because they confessed. They said, "Oh, we did this bad thing with Joseph, our brother, and and he said, "Okay, that's good enough. I'm your brother. I'm Joseph." And they all cry and kiss each other, and everything's fine, okay? And he says, go back home and get Dad. Bring him back, okay? He says to Pharaoh, he says, my dad is still alive. My people are down there, and he says, I'm going to bring him up. And he says, yeah, bring him up. Give him any place you want. They go to Goshen, which is the best place down there in the Delta. The best place, even though there's a famine going on, that's still the best place to be. And they're getting all the grain they need anyway, and they can plant good crops and have water and stuff and grow into a nation of almost 3 million people. But in the meantime, Jacob comes and he meets with Pharaoh, and it says in the chapter that he blesses Pharaoh. Well, now some people want to think that Jacob is blessing Pharaoh, which means that Pharaoh understood that he was a king. He was equal to a king back over there from Canaan. That could be. However, the original language for the word bless means to bow down and honor. Okay, like you would do with a king. So take your pick. They set up over there, and then they have 5 more years of famine. And what does Joseph do? Well, they all come to Joseph and they say, oh, more food, here's our money, and then the money runs out. And they say, well, we have no money. So, well, you got cattle, haven't you? So they give him all this cattle. They sell all the cattle for the food. And before the 7 years is up, the cattle are gone, the money is gone, and all that's left is the land that they own and themselves. And they sell those to Pharaoh through Joseph. They become sharecroppers, what we would call sharecroppers. And Joseph, it says in one place, he moves them around the country anywhere he wants to. where he thinks the best place would be for them to be, he moves them. He just moves on. Pharaoh owns all the land. He owns all the people. And Joseph sets up the sharecropping system. He says, here's food and some seed, plant, and anything that comes up, give Pharaoh 20%, 1/5. And that becomes the law of the land. Even after the famine is over, it's the law of the land. Taxation is 20%. Boom. Joseph rules for 80 years. 80 years. He's 110 when he dies. Okay? And Jacob is 130 when he comes to Egypt, and he's there for 17 years before he dies. Okay? Now, when Joseph dies, now who rules? Pharaoh comes back and takes the throne. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. The Israelites rule for 250 years. Some say 300. 250 years. And Joseph only ruled for 80 of those. 80. Well, God, that's 170 years between Joseph's death and maybe the Pharaoh coming down from Upper Egypt in the south, up on the plateau, to take rule back again. Who rules for that 170 years? Remember what we talked about at the crossroads in Genesis 49? Who got the birthright? Joseph. Joseph. Except Jacob gave Judah the right to be the king. Joseph was the king. Well, when Joseph is not around, then Judah's got to be the king. That's what Jacob said. He gave Judah the right to rule the family and the scepter, and for Judah to be the depository of God's law. He was the keeper of the law. You want to know what God said about anything, you go to Judah. He's got the real facts. But that's all. That's all. Wow. Well, now we've got another conflict area, because Judah, not Reuben, not Simeon, not Levi, the first three born, they didn't get any birthright. It went all the way to Judah. And then Judah, now they don't like that. But Judah only got to be king. Joseph got everything else. Now, 10 brothers at least 10 of them, they hate Joseph because he got everything. Okay? Oh, boy, it's really, really interesting. Who rules? Well, certainly not Judah, because Judah was probably 15 to 20 years old before Joseph was even born. Okay? And when Joseph dies at 110, Judah's long gone. Okay? So who's the firstborn of Judah? Well, remember the X-rated Bible, the tryst with Tamar. Tamar plays the harlot and gets Judah to go in with her, and she has twins, and one of them is Zara, and he gets the red cord around his wrist because he's the firstborn. And that's where we get red tape, by the way. The official color of the monarchy is the red tape. You know, you seal the document and you put red tape on it. So Zara, but I'm almost positive that Zara was already gone by the time Joseph died. But it's going to be the sons of Zara. The family line of Zara is going to rule over Egypt for that 170 years. And when Pharaoh says, hey, who is this Joseph guy? We don't know him. We're going back down and take over here, you know, and put these guys in the work camp. Okay? What happens, we talked about this before, what happens when a country is conquered by another country? The royalty gets out, right? They're the first ones to leave, okay? And not only that, but all of the princes down the line for the 170 years, out of Zara's line, only the firstborn each time could be king. So what do the other princes do? Well, they gather up a bunch of people and they go and they make settlements, and they be the king over there, okay? All across the top of the Mediterranean. Troy, Athens, all of those things are all Israelites, okay? So Zara rules until the Pharaoh takes over, and then for 100 or maybe 150 years, the Israelites are in servitude until Moses shows up. Okay, and that's what we'll get into next time, about what happens after Joseph dies. But let me leave you with one interesting little part here. In chapter 11 of Hebrews, it's called the Heroes of Faith chapter. It's a long list of all the biblical characters and how they acted to make it onto God's hero list. The heroes of faith. See? And Dr. Scott used to always say that chapter 11 of Hebrews is the only chapter in the Bible that eulogizes man. Everything else is all about God. But now we've got man. And what do you have to do to make it onto God's favorite hero list? Well, you'd think it'd be something pretty good. And most of them were, except Joseph. Joseph, he said a couple of sentences. That's it. Before he dies, he says to his kids, he says, when you go back to the promised land, when you go back, how do you know they were going to go back? That's what Abraham was told. Huh? You'll be there 400 years and you'll come back. He knew that prophecy. Abraham told Isaac. Isaac told Jacob. Okay? They all knew that prophecy. See? So he says, when I die, take my bones. When you go back, take my bones with you. And they do. Huh? 300 years later. But that's all he did. He talked faith. He says, God, in other words, he said, God said you're going to go back to the promised land and be a good bunch of people over there. When you do that, 300 years from now, when you do that, take my bones with you. And they did. In fact, well, that's Jacob. So that's all he did, was just say that. And he made the list. Faithing is the way God has set it up to get people saved, right? Because the whole New Testament is all about faith. Faith is a verb. The three words in Hebrew that are translated faith and trust, and the one word in Greek that's always translated faith, and believe is in there too, are all verbs. They're all verbs. There are times when the word faith is used as a noun. That doesn't make it a noun. That doesn't make faith a noun. It doesn't make faith something you believe, something you hold. It comes from a verb. It's the title that describes the action. Bath is a noun. But we know that bath is a verb. It's talking about a verb, the action of bathing. And that's why I say faithing. Because God has promised when you act in faith, when you faith on something that He says, He'll put His Spirit inside your body. And when His Spirit is in your body, you're saved. Because He looks at you and He sees Himself. He doesn't see all that other stuff that's down in there. Okay? Faithing. And in order to act in faith, we have to have some kind of a basis to found our faith. And what better basis have we got than to know that God is real? Because once you've decided beyond all doubt that God is real, then the whole Bible opens up to you. Because all of that stuff that Jesus said that we can't prove, and you can't prove that God will put his Spirit in your body, or that's in there. You don't feel anything. What do you have to base that on? God's real. If God is real, then all that stuff he said is true. And the lost tribes, that's the best study for proving God is real. 300 some prophecies that can be seen as fulfilled. Lost tribes. Well, that's the one for this time. Thanks a lot for watching. God bless.